By trade, I'm a car mechanic. There's a massive dark undertone to the industry. You can get sucked into it. I definitely disconnected and distanced myself from the other boys. Me and Keith Duffy, like, we hated each other. Mikey Graham and I didn't speak for years. The river doesn't know that you can't swim. Liam, I was lost. Empty as a person, lonely as a person, standing in front of 20,000 people singing songs. And I'm the most lonely soul. I had nothing inside. I was dead. We had a great innocence in Boyzone with pencil cases, rubbers, rulers, and nice music. There was no undertone of sexuality. There was no undertone of violence with your Beyoncés and your Taylor Swifts. It's just the hood. What's the problem? You're looking at people doing live witchcraft on stage, live demonic performances on stage. If you speak it, you own it. If you act it, you are it.
There is a very, very dark side to being famous, isn't there?
I was deep involved in witchcraft. If they can puppeteer you into these situations, they will. And I was boozing just to get through a day. Like, oh man, I never left the house. Where do I go from here? Like, what the fuck do I do? I would wake up in the middle of the night and I could see demonic things within the room and stuff like that, but I couldn't move.
What were your darkest times? I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health. Shane.
What's the crack?
Good to see you, brother.
Indeed.
Delighted to have you on. A member of one of the biggest, most successful boy bands Great Britain has ever seen.
Apparently so.
Boyzone. Well, I still love them now, and I'm 45. Before we get into that whole, because you joined Boyzone when you was 17?
17 pretty much, 1993.
What was your background before you joined the band? What was you like?
Do you know what? Really interestingly, and I think a lot of people might find this, I don't mean hard to believe, but I was a super, super shy child. Like, I was quite an introvert. I enjoyed, growing up as a young kid, my own little space and place in my household, called the family household. I've got 5 sisters. I'm the only boy. So I kind of always found myself getting away from the noise, if that makes sense. But only because, me as growing up in that school system, I eventually got found out as being heavily dyslexic. So I always had a problem.
Right.
I had a problem that I wasn't like the rest of the people in the school or the rest of the kids. I had a problem that I couldn't do what the guy or girl sitting next to me in a classroom could do. They could read, they could write, and I couldn't. So I always had a self-defense mechanism called, not loneliness, but definitely recluseness. I would never be forthcoming in friendship, never be forthcoming in relationships or in conversations or anything like that. I was always the really shy, duck under the radar kind of guy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then in one of the biggest bands in the world. you know?
To go from recluse to member of Boyzone they're light years away, aren't they?
They
That's
are
day
light
and
years.
night.
Yeah, day and night, light years away. But I think the best way I could probably explain that is a survival tactic yet again. Going into a band like Boyzone, I know we'll probably get deep into the whole thing, but it was a chance. It was a chance, an opportunity, and something I was good at, meaning chances. I always saw a door, if that opened, and I thought, ooh, I could do that, and that would get me to a next step in life, then I would go and do it. For instance, in the school system, I was the best sports guy in that school. I was the best high jumper, long jumper, runner, you name it, I was the best. And that's what got me through my under the radar system of, no, we need this kind of kid, he's a good kid, we don't care about his exams as such, but, he's doing great for the school. I won the school medals.
Was you popular? Although you was keeping yourself to yourself, was you one of the popular ones? Were you used to popularity is probably the best question.
Yes, because I was good at stuff, but only stuff, not academia, just stuff. And the popularity came from the basketball team, or, I was a good friend growing up as a kid. I was a good friend because I was a nice guy. Like, I was not a roughneck. I was not a bully. I was not any of that. I was really shy, but a really nice guy, you know?
It's interesting you say that. When someone asks me to describe myself, I mean, I hate talking about me if I'm completely honest, but I always pride myself on being a good friend. And you've just said exactly the same thing. I don't think anyone's ever given me that response.
Really?
And I'm the same. I'm proud of myself for being a good friend.
Amen.
And I know some of your friends, so I can vouch for you as well, that you are a good friend. You're here with one.
Yeah, I'm here with one. You know, Ben Afedu, you know, he's been a pal of mine since 1993, the early days of Boyzone, and the whole kind of world of pop and these little Irish boys coming into the UK. And, you know, I think I'm not a fighter, but I will fight for my friend.
Mm.
You know, I'm not that instigator, initiator. I'm nothing like that, but I'm a rock beside you for sure.
You're a defender.
A defender, 100%, yes.
And before I ask how Boyzone all began, is talent, does it run in the family? Because you've got a sister that was in a popular band as well.
So in my 5-sister tier, let's call it, my oldest sister, Tara, she was in a band called Fab, signed to Sony at some point. My next sister in line, Alison, she's a tech head, so she lives in the States over there, got headhunted by whoever, and off she went. And then everybody else underneath me, comes into music. Then my twin sisters are in Bewitched, or were in Bewitched, or still doing Bewitched. They're still out there gigging. And then my youngest sister, Naomi, she was in a small band called Buffalo G, which they had a couple of records. Again, I think signed to Warner, I think like that. So in the family, we are a musical family. And the side of that is my mother's side of family also. All my cousins are kind of world champion pipe drummers and all just violinists and all sorts of more musician side of things as opposed to entertainment side of things. And me and my immediate Lynch family were entertainers, visually entertainers, as opposed to skilled players in anything.
So who was your kind of pop idol when you was younger? Favourite musician, band, singer?
I kind of grew up in a fantasy world in Ireland called the USA, you know. So my first record, kind of 1988, Yo MTV Raps, or MTV came to Ireland as a channel.
I remember Yo MTV Raps.
Yeah, right. So all of a sudden, this music kind of hit Ireland, or hit Dublin, where I was born and raised. And I was like, what's this stuff? Now, I've always been into cars. So USA trucks, cars, V8s. So that kind of car culture of America, I loved. And the kind of baseball jerseys or American football jerseys and caps and stuff, I loved the style. But then all of a sudden, this music came into my life called hip hop. And me and a good pal of mine, who are great friends today still, thank God, we just got into this American culture, baggy jeans, NWA, and off I went. So my first record was Straight Outta Compton, 1988, NWA. And that's what this was going against the grain from the time. So you had, obviously, U2, Cranberries, Sinead O'Connor, rock and roll, Ireland. And then hip hop was just this interesting kind of, ooh. And I was always that guy. I was the guy who would just be that different. And I still am today. I still have a little twist of difference in not being into the norm or whatever else is into. I kind of sway and go the other way for whatever reason. I don't know.
So how did Boyzone begin? What was the audition like? What was the whole process?
There's a weird story like this, because the story really goes that I'd never auditioned. That's the truth of the story. Yes, the big man, Louis Walsh, and I love him to pieces, by the way. Louis Walsh put the whole thing together in the end, let's call it. But the beginning of Boyzone was created by one guy called Mark Walton. And I have to give him his dues. I have to give him his props. And he was the one who had a vision for an Irish pop band. I used to go to school with this guy, and I got kicked out of school myself for obvious reasons of non-learning ability. There was no point in me being in school, or certainly going to college, or anything of the such. I was a hands-on guy. My dad, thankfully, had a car mechanics workshop. That's how he raised his family. So I went to work for my dad as a car mechanic. So by trade, I'm a car mechanic. But this guy, after a couple of years of me being kicked out of school, he knocked on my door one evening and he said, Shane, long time no see, cut to the chase, do you want to be in a band? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no interest. in anything musical as such, being an entertainer, other than hip-hop, reggae, and that was my little kind of thing that I was listening to.
Was you known for singing or anything?
No. Like, I'm a car guy, and if anything, I'm going to go race cars. You know, I'm going to take up a family business, works as a car mechanic. Me and my dad, we built kind of hot rod stock cars, and he raced. So my dad was I'm going to race like my dad, you know, kind of thing. Music was just not me at all. I was, again, just that shy little quiet kid who just stayed in the background. And he explained to me, Mark Walton, he said, look, have you ever heard Take That? He said. I said, I have. He goes, obviously I've got 5 sisters. He goes, we're going to be the new Irish Take That, which my older sisters kind of were into brass, into New Kids in the Block. And so I knew what a boy band was.
All the things I was into.
Yeah. But I looked at it as fantastic entertainers and da-da-da-da-da. But for me, I'm just hip-hop, reggae, that's it. And he goes, yeah, we're going to be like them. I'm like, okay. And weirdly enough, I never sang a note in my life. No, I just wasn't interested. I didn't know if I could, didn't know if I couldn't. It just wasn't something I was into. So I agreed to go on this journey, and I think that's kind of what I mean by when I see a door that opens, I'll go, I'll give that a go. Chance is chance, and I love chance in life. So one of my sisters got the name of Louis Walsh as a manager. So we got his name, got his number, gave him a call, gave him the idea of the Irish Take That. We met on Grafton Street, very famous street in Dublin, in a pub, particularly that's gone now, and he took out this kind of page after page of a schedule to do with Johnny Logan, and guys, I can take you here, I can take you there, I can do all this. Now, just as me and another dude going, we'd like to make a band. He hasn't seen, heard, nothing. Like, we've not, me and Mark never sang together, we never did anything like that. It was just like, it's just an idea. And this birth thing called Boyzone, and the auditions. So Louis Walsh, and he goes, love the idea, lads. Tell you what we do. We'll get you in the newspapers. We'll get you on the radio. We'll get loads of people auditioning for the band, and we'll make the band. So immediate it was there. So I sat in a desk with Louis Walsh, like you see on the X Factors. I sat behind the desk, and the guys coming in to audition. Rows and rows of people around the block in the old 𝐿MT&x in Dublin town, right by the Liffey. And all these guys came through the door. And I'm sat looking at these guys going, oh, he's amazing. Oh, wow. Coming in with guitars, coming in with beautiful voices, all kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, weirdly, in a belief that I'm actually going to be in this band. But I'm not auditioning for the band, weirdly, but I'm going to be in it. So by the end of these audition processes, let's say it took a week or so, whittled down to the top 10. And in the top 10, and I was stood next to these boys, including the great man Colin Farrell. Hollywood himself was in the lineup of Boyzone, the original lineup of the top 10 of Boyzone.
I wonder how many people know that.
I don't know, but even Colin Farrell was there, and he was good. He was good. Wow. Now, he was known as the line dancing king of Dublin. so going back to, 1993, but he was, as he is, stunning looking guy, tall, jet black hair, and could dance, you know what I mean? With some cowboy boots, mind you, and a hat, but, you know, he could dance. And he was there in the top 10, and it whittled down, and then bang, this band was born, kind of, called Boyzone. About a month or two into a 6-piece band, which there's a TV show, The Late Late Show, the very famous Boyzone clip that most of us absolutely hate in Boyzone. But looking back on it, it's hilarious because, the innocence of us boys is incredible, but the belief of us boys was real. We were going to be this band. We had no question in our mind that this wasn't going to work. So we went on this TV show. We were picked as a band, say, on the Thursday night. Lads, you're Boyzone. Were we even called Boyzone at the time? I don't know. That might have came later. But we're a band. The band that you've seen in the newspapers and auditioned and you heard on the radio are now in front of you on the television, the biggest TV show in Ireland. And here they are, lads. And the main guy, 𝐃𝐨𝐵𝐿 is his name. He's passed away recently enough. He said, look, I'm not happy with you boys coming on the TV show and not doing anything. But we're not a band at this point. We're just picked as individuals to create this visual called a band. And he says, no, we want you to do something. Like, what do we do? So me and the boys, in the best of our ability, did a little dance. A very famous dance. That didn't go very well. But that's the best we could do at the time, you know? That's the best we could do at the time. And I look back at it and think, I mean, it was absolutely hilarious. But if I was to pull that out of a drawer now and show my kids and go, check this out, and we did nothing or never became a global success, then that was a moment in time. But one thing I love about that clip is the belief it can give others that it was really shit. It was really fucking bad. It was terrible. It was a laughing stock of Ireland. But guess what? We pulled through a moment and made it happen because we truly believed in what we were about to create in music life or history, let's call it.
It's a very good message to send out to people. Just feel the fear and do it anyway.
I think so.
You must have been nervous doing that.
Oh, it was horrible. Like, I've never been on telly before, never been in anything like that. And all of a sudden, we are on the biggest show in Ireland, making absolute fools of ourselves.
Because you're dancing with all your might in front of all them people live, weren't you?
Yeah. But don't forget, we're not trained dancers at this point. We're club heads.
Going for it.
What club heads are going, well, no, just crack on and do what you do in a nightclub. And that's the only dancing I ever did in my life. So that kind of, when I look back on it, I've gone through different stages of my life of love, hate, that clip, and being annoyed with it, and annoyed with that's out there, and I wish it was squashed and never been seen again. But then, as you get older, I think I've come to a more acceptable way in my mind, thinking, no, actually, that's actually amazing that you can be that determined and that have a team behind you that go, no, we're going to make this happen, and create something out of absolutely nothing. You didn't have to have skills, quality, anything. It's called practice, rehearsals, and learning. And I don't think anyone comes out of the womb a superstar. I think you have to get into a craft like a car mechanic. You don't just go into the garage and start taking engines apart. You've got to learn how to take an engine apart. And I think that's what me and the boys did. We learned our craft as we kind of slowly came up through the world of music. And by the time we arrived kind of in the UK in 1994, we did Ireland for a little bit. UK, 1994, Christmas, smash hits on the road show. We were good. We were good and we were ready to have it out.
I think it's a great part of your tapestry. I do. I think it's brilliant. First impressions of the other band members.
Ronan Keating came in. He was a great singer-songwriter. Mikey Graham, great singer-songwriter. Keith Duffy played in a band, played the drums. Great entertainer, great look. Stephen Gately, unbelievable character within the industry and the music. And I knew Stephen from, because all my sisters were kind of disco dancers. So he was an amazing dancer. And he was always in that field of entertainment within small Dublin that it was. So my oldest sister, Tara, she was a break dancer. So that's kind of where my influence of hip-hop kind of bled into my younger self. She's like 3 years older, 4 years older than me. And all of her crew at the time were kind of listening to USA influence. So that's where it crept in. And even into ragga and stuff like that. So she was kind of really cool, my older sister. And she went to all these breakdancing competitions. And the breakdancing and disco dancing competitions were always in the same place. And that's where Stephen Gately, I remember him as a kid. He was unbelievable. Me and Keith Duffy, like, we hated each other. I knew Keith all my life, like 9, 10, 11 years old. We lived reasonable, a couple of streets down from each other. And when I say hated each other, there was a massive miscommunication between me and him because we were never friends. We were just visual. I saw that guy, he has a particular look that I don't like. And, so it's that immaturity thinking, look at that fucking guy. But realistically, when you go and talk to someone, it breaks all of those stupidity things that you think in your mind. And Keith was the most, he was like an Adonis. He always had the streaks in his hair, the blonde streaks. His mum was a hairdresser, so he always looked really slick. His dad was in the rag trade, so he had the denim jackets and the jeans and the boots and stuff. He was beautiful, like. He was absolutely beautiful. I was one dirty little scruff. I was this guy who just loved motorbikes, loved BMXs, loved that. I was just an oily bike riding, almost like you see like in the streets today of UK and around the world almost, is, those guys tear arse and wheelies up and down the street, no helmets. I was that kid. Yeah. So I was not trouble because we kind of lived in leafy suburbia. So I had to ride the kind of street to get to the field. I should have pushed the bike, but I didn't. I rode the street. But I wasn't trying to create problems. I wasn't trying to be the guy who caused torment within the neighbourhood. But at the same time, me and Keith were just those worlds apart, let's call it.
Did you ever clash properly?
In the band we did. We got there in the end. Like, thank God, I love the fella. 32 years now into the game. But in Boyzone's initial 93 was kind of feeling each other out, and who's who and who's what, and who's the lead singer and who's the backing singers, or who's the bookends, or whatever you want to look at it. But what I love about Boyzone is we learned our craft individually, or learned our lane, learned our station, learned where, if you do this, it will be successful. And Duffy and I had a particular, I guess Boyzone, if you want to line us up, had similar height. So it was a nice visual structure we had, And Keith and I understood each other a little more because we're closer in age. Mikey Graham and I didn't speak for years. He was a car mechanic also. I was a car mechanic. But I was more interested in... funny, only about 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to Mikey Graham. And, it was him who brought up the situation. He goes, do you remember, like, we fell out over an exhaust pipe? I'm dead serious. And that was the truth. I put a Jan Speed exhaust pipe on my little twin cam Corolla, my 𝐸86, and it gives you a little extra 5 brake horsepower and a K&N air filter. And I was telling him in excitement what I was doing to my car. And he called me a prick or something. He goes, you prick. He goes, that can't make your car faster. So he was a car mechanic, I was a car mechanic, but in different headspaces. So from then on I went, I don't like this fella. He's not into it the way I'm into it. So stupid little knickknacks of troubles within the camp, but not really anything. But don't forget, Ronan Keating was 16 years old. 16, I was 17. Steve was older than I, he was 17. Duffy was 19 and Mick was 21. So they're the gaps between us. So 17, 21, decent little gap there as kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you see the world very differently. I mean, it is a gulf when you're that age. Ronan Keating, what's he like as a person? Or what was he like back then? He always seems very clean cut to me.
I think we all were clean cut. I think we were all innocently...
Not that that's a bad thing, by the way.
No. I think innocently born and raised Catholics and good lads. Like general good morals in household. I think we were all born and raised in houses that had, without a doubt, the covering of Catholicism or Christ or definitely the church. Schooling in Ireland was all very Christian based. So we had natural fears of the world, fears of God and fears of misbehaving, let's say. And generally we went into this band, into this world of pop music, which is super, not destructive, but it's a lane which you're not ready for, coming out of a house, like innocence into the pop world or into the movie world can be difficult. I think you have to be a bit more streetwise sometimes to understand certain behaviours or things or challenges you're going to be met with. But Ronan Keating was brilliant. From the get-go, he was brilliant. He had a voice to be recognised. Now, we did a documentary recently, and in the documentary, I learned lots about the boys I actually didn't know from their own
perspective.
Perspective of who they were going into this band. Same as me going in going, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here, but making my way. And Ro, Ro was one of the guys who got flown to the UK to work with a massive producer. One of the biggest guys who was working with E17 at the time, and I think he would take that and all the big boys that we wanted to be like. So a couple of fellas were flown into the UK to work with the producer, and the producer said, get rid of the blonde guy, he can't sing. And that was Ronan Keating. So at that time, I didn't know that happened. And one of the other boys, Mikey Graham and Stephen Gately, ended up singing the very first record from Boyzone, which is an old Detroit Spinners record, Working My Way Back to You. And that kind of was the band. And Ro took that as, whoa, it really beat him down. And I didn't know that at the time because he excelled so well after that. But he kind of went into a real moment of, whoa, I might be out of his band, And he fought for his position. And I can never fault him for that because he came out punching. He came out punching and he was the best dressed, the best behaved, the best in interviews. His work ethic was incredible. Like he had it above and beyond. He's a superstar.
He got put on the ropes and then he upped his game.
He got put on the ropes and he came out swinging.
Yeah,
like proper.
Fair play to him. Was there ever like a power struggle in the dynamic?
Yes, I think the power struggle in the dynamic of just immaturity. I won't say that it was to do with equality within the band. I think it was just immaturity within our own selves, our character based. And me, even me, because of my musical interests and tastes were not necessarily boy band based. I had to fight for my own character. So certain photo shoots we turn up to, and there's a visual, there's what they'd like to create from this photo shoot, or clothing wise, that they'd want us to wear in the early days. And I just was like, oh man, I don't want to wear that shit. Like, that's just not my style. So I fought for years to be a different character. In the end of that, I had to fight so hard that I definitely disconnected and distanced myself from the other boys. I definitely became so unlike them that I almost couldn't even hang out with them, weirdly.
Right.
It was such a... But it was a struggle, though. It was a massive struggle for me, because I didn't feel right when I was dressed like them boys. So I had to feel right, It was the only thing I could kind of hold on to, was to fight for me as a position. Now, in the end, it definitely worked out for the best. And I say the best because Boyzone ended up with its, like all boy band members do, they have their cliques of supporters or fan base who are attracted to a particular person, look, whatever the case may be. So I had definitely more of an urban following than the rest of the boys. But interestingly enough, going into that urban side of things, and a lot of the young kind of black kids in the UK who have now become quite famous in the days, a lot of the grime artists always remind me, because I have a good pal of mine called Paddy who looks after them, and I'm always in their remit, kind of, from Stormzy to Gigs to Chip to, all those kind of boys. And a lot of their boys and their crew that they roll with give me a lovely compliment, which makes me feel so amazing, of when they were growing up, I was the only guy kind of representing their culture within the UK, but I was just in this boy band. So I had a real interesting dynamic that kind of suited a lovely narrative for me within the band. But I felt safe there. I felt safe because I was representing what I felt good in and the music that I listened to. Although I was singing No Matter What, Love Me For A Reason, Key to My Life, and I was singing all these boy band ballads, but I felt good in a R&B urban visual, I think.
I think that's what made it work so well. Like you just say, singing Don't Love Me for Fun Girl with tattoos all over your neck. And what did you do to get yourself branded the bad boy of the group?
Nothing. This is the thing, right? So there's a whole thing that's gone around for 30 years that I'm the bad boy in the group. That's only because of my visuals. Okay.
You must have done something.
Okay. Let me slightly retract that. In the last days of... I was never the bad boy in Boyzone until, say, 1999. And then I became a bit loose-tongued is probably the right word.
Free speaking.
Free speaking is a lovely way to put it. Free speaking, but not necessarily for any particular cause. Maybe just the cause, trouble, at that point. Because I think I was troubled myself at that point. At that point, I've gone so deep into my own character, so deep into being this mysterious, unpredictable, what's he going to do next guy, that I kind of found myself kind of having to believe in and to have to kind of do something or to say something, not controversial, but not boy bandish. You know what I mean? Maybe the F's and the fucks and something like on MTV Awards or on live TV shows.
I've seen what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're sitting at the end and what was it you said? Was it live on TV?
Yes. MTV, Boyzone was basically, there was rumours in the paper that Boyzone were breaking up, and this is 99. And I kind of came on and said something of the fact of, it's a load of fucking shite and this, that, the other, and go fuck yourselves, or whatever it was at the time. I can't even remember. But then about 2 months later, we actually broke up. Well, I think there was, but I guess I was a wild character at that point. But I was wild character, industry-based, very confused, didn't know who I even was myself, been catapulted around the world, and I was lost. Liam, I was lost. I was lost as an individual, lost as a person, empty as a person, lonely as a person, standing in front of 20,000 people singing songs. And I'm the most lonely soul. I had nothing inside. I was dead. I was dead. I just had this persona of nastiness, which people kind of, or like I said earlier, unpredictability that, oh shit, what's Shano going to do next? They call me Shano. What's Shane going to do next? But I had a little liking to that because that's all I had to hold on to at the time because I was fucking dying inside.
What is that? As if your individuality is being stolen?
I think so. I think we were so, the music industry is what an honour and what a place to be in and what a gift and what a journey and what a chance a little fella like me from Dublin riding motorbikes greased up to me eyeballs to be able to witness and to experience a band like Boyzone. I would never want to complain about it, but it's a difficult world. It's a difficult world of acceptance. It's a difficult world of you're only as good as your last hit, they used to say. And that pressure as these little kids, it was nasty. And I took it in my own inner self, I suppose. But on the outside looking at, we saw the world. We had, champagne, caviar for everyone. It was an amazing times. But the inner self was just completely dead, and just no clue who I was anymore. Who is Shane Lynch? I don't know. 1999, who the fuck am I?
It's funny because now we live in an Instagram era where everybody wants to be famous, but there is a very, very dark side to being famous, isn't there? What were your darkest times?
I went through, I think people do go through particular steps of fame, perhaps.
Because you was mega famous. Mega.
It's a difficult thing in stages where, wow, we're going to be famous. Then people are stopping in the street. Then do I like it? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And then I guess it depends on who you are. For me, I was that shy individual, so I didn't take it as bravado. I didn't take it as, oh my God, this is amazing. I think what people love to say is when you see someone taking a picture with you, it never stops. It hasn't stopped for all of the years of Boyzone, and it still does. It's a nicer manner now because we're all a bit more grown up, including the supporters, fans and stuff. When someone stops you for a picture in the street and you take that picture, and as long as they're smiling, it's amazing. But from the outside, if you're with somebody who doesn't really know you that way, you're like, oh, you love it, don't you? You love it, don't you? It's not that at all. It's not that you love it. It's just part of your life. You don't know any different.
You're obliged to do it also.
Obliged, definitely. Some people might argue that point, Liam, about you're obliged to do it because you're a public figure. I think, and that's where if you decide to go against what's happening in your life, you're going to have bigger troubles.
Right.
You've got to accept it. You've got to accept it, and you're not going to change it. So you can't get annoyed with it. So find some peace with it more than elatedness about it. Just find peace with it, find acceptance, and more give it to the person who's coming for the picture or the chat or the handshake or the hug or whatever the case may be. Find it that this is their moment and never yours. That's how I kind of found it. It's never my moment when someone comes up to me. I'm just a little pawn in a game that they grew up in watching, and if that makes their life any way better that day, then please may that happen.
How would you describe the music industry on a whole, the side of the industry that the consumer doesn't see? I sense that there's a dark undertone to the industry.
There's a massive dark undertone to the industry, and you can get sucked into it. You can stay on the outskirts of it, but the governing body of the industry is pretty damn dark. The nature of the industry, the spiritual side of the industry is dark. And we, as artists, if you're a big enough artist, maybe you can pull through in whatever, like let's say you're a country artist, America country, they're pretty like across the board, there's not much going on there. But I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean there's not much reason to kind of make somebody a dark artist that is playing country music. In fact, most country music is probably pretty positive on a church side of things. We just don't really look at it that way. Or in a God side of things. A lot of country music is that. But I think pop music is about taking characters into a darker world. Not only for the artists themselves, but the followers, the people who are listening to those rhymes, lyrics, songs, the repeat is the belief. It's like You know, we had an interesting conversation outside about growing up in a house, and if you have a violent household, you'll grow up in a violent mentality. This is how a house is run. Of course, we can change the narrative with maturity in life and as we get older. But I think with kids, you know, in the music industry that's going on today, I find it very difficult for kids. We had a great innocence in Boyzone with pencil cases, rubbers, rulers, and nice music. There was no undertone of sexuality. There was no undertone of violence, no undertone of anything. It was just lovely music. But then you go over to the other side, and I'll bring it out with your Beyoncés and your Taylor Swifts and all that. Like, not to go dark straight away, but it's right in front of you. You're looking at people doing live witchcraft on stage, live spiritual performances on stage, live demonic performances on stage to all of our children. And it's just a performance. What's the problem? It's just a hood. What's the problem? It's just a pentagon on the ground. What's the problem? They're doing live stuff in front of us. It's a big problem, but we're just going, it's a performance, isn't it? It's so real and so rife that it's disgusting in my mind of music. That's just where I'm at. So I know the tones of the big guys at the top. They are doing all we're puppets on a string, you know, puppets on a thing. Like even going down to the P. Diddy stuff and where he's at. You look at 20 years of influence over us as a generation and the music, and it's the girls, it's the money, it's the cars, it's the this. And we grow up thinking it's the girls, it's the money, it's the cars, and it is. And then eventually they cut the legs off it and look where he is now. So if they can puppeteer you into these situations, they will. And it comes demonically from the top. I don't even know how we got to this point, but it does. The industry's a dark-ass place.
Well, it's very interesting, and it's the stuff that people want to know because it's the industry secrets that no one will ever get to see because nobody will broadcast it, certainly not allowed. It's all very subtle indoctrination. Like you say, it's just an innocent hood or subtle signs of devil worship and little things like this that I see. I mean, some of the things that Sam Smith has done, I mean, what's your take on him as a man with such influence?
You know, all of these characters in the industry, like a Sam Smith, like you just have to look at them and them now. They didn't decide just to be straight out the box, devil horns and craziness. They were brought into this more and more and more because it sells. It sells and they want to make sales. And I don't mean they sell your soul to the devil, but a lot of them talk about it. But it's generally witchcraft. They get into witchcraft, they get into that, and once you're inside that kind of witchcraft scenario, it's hard to come back. And I was there. And that's the only reason I can really talk about it is because the dark times I'm talking about is I was into witchcraft. I was into all of the dark stuff that the industry was in. That kind of 1997 into 98 into 99 I got darker and darker into spiritualism stuff and the dark nature of the industry. And that's how I know it's real. If I was just talking off the cuff, not being experienced it, then fair enough. But no, I was deep involved in witchcraft in those days.
So what is witchcraft?
Witchcraft is everything.
Because I've heard the word 100 times, but yeah. I've never delved into witchcraft. I just think it's some kind of culty madness.
It is culty madness, but it's also innocently presented to you. So tarot cards, spiritual healers, Ouija boards, palm reading, any white witch spells, everything that the kind of like, hey, let me just bring it even to Harry Potter. It's only a film, and what's the problem, Harry Potter? But it's witchcraft, right? So the more we accept witchcraft in a soft nature, is the more our kids are grown up now accepting witchcraft in a deeper nature. And this might sound mad, but going into your yoga practices and all that kind of stuff, they're all deities of the underworld that people are tapping into. And the underworld is something you don't want to fuck with. You really don't want to fuck with. So we're so accepting of it's the norm now. And I guess for me to kind of go to that point of understanding what witchcraft was is really why I came out the other side, heading towards the Lord, let's call it. But I understood the demonic principalities and what's involved in the industry and outside in the world right now.
And what's the ultimate goal with that? Is it to reject God?
Just to hide God from you. Not to reject. God, just to divert you is probably the word. To divert you from a belief called grace, mercy, love, tranquility, and all of the goodness in life. You know, it's the kind of, just sway you over there. Don't even look over there. Look over this way, lads, you know, in our music too.
Fascinating. So while you was in the grip of the madness and the cult and the witchcraft, was you drinking and using drugs at the same time?
Drinking 100%. Drugs was never, thankfully, me and the boys, again, going back to that innocent Irish young growing up, we love a gargle. We're Irish fellas, love a gargle. Still do. I love a booze. But drugs, thankfully, was not on our remit. I think we were too busy for drugs. You know what I mean? I think we were...
Too drunk for drugs.
Too drunk for drugs. And we didn't really mix in the after-show party stuff as well. I think anytime we came off a show, we were gone to the next place anyway. It wasn't, we weren't hanging out with other celebrities. We were hanging out in the industry. So we were lucky to avoid all that, I would say, anyway.
How did the whole thing affect your mental health? Because you're quite open about your mental health, aren't you?
I believe so, to the point of just my own journey and understanding. And mentally, I was a broken fella. Like 1999 into 2000, when the door, let's say, closed, it really closed. It was like I'd been on the road for 7 years. The year just passed, we were on 130 planes that year. Let's call it every second, third day you're getting on a plane. And then the phone wasn't ringing, the door wasn't being knocked, the car wasn't outside. I had nothing to do. I was like, shit, there's nobody around. And goes back to, who the fuck am I? Who am I? I'm this guy from Boyzone called Shane Lynch. And now I'm not that guy from Boyzone called Shane Lynch anymore. You are in the public view, but sat going, what's my next steps in life? Where do I go from here? Like, what the fuck do I do? And that side of things then got me into more boozing. And I was boozing just to get through a day, like, because I didn't know what to do. I had no purpose in life at that point.
Too much time on your hands.
Yeah, too much time on your hands. And I was thinking, right. And then what saved me kind of out at that point of busyness is race cars. I kind of got into race cars at that point, and then it gave me a focus as such. But there was a period of, let's say, 3 to 6 months of just nothingness, emptiness.
Depression?
Never, as a diagnosis, I never went to someone and got help. But if I look back, oh man, I never left the house. Never left I just stayed indoors, like just...
Reverted back to being recluse.
Being a recluse. Going back to a little kid. Like a young fucking kid, instead of being mid-20s or whatever I was at the time. Yeah, just like a childlike state of just fear of the world, fear of myself even. Like, it was horrible.
I'm assuming that you was all, there's been no suggestion of infighting since we've been chatting, so the picture I've got painted is you're a close unit, almost like a family as a boy band. So how, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, safe to say?
Safe to say 100% without the understanding of the brotherhood and the gold in it. Like, I know how to fucking press your buttons. So that little jab, bit in an interview, something to like... but that came from boredom too, and came from spending too much time with each other.
And brothers do that.
And brothers do that. And I think that's where I'm trying to place it. Like, they know how to push my buttons, and equally. But on the outer scale of that, fuck me, I adore them boys. Like, I love them.
So Boyzone were a true band of brothers?
Band of brothers. Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah, amen to that. So, which then makes me think, how would a young guy and young men deal with such a tragic death like Stephen Gately? I remember when I read that he died, I was sad because I loved his voice and his music and the band, and I'm a million miles away. So how would that affect someone like you that was like a brother to him?
This is 2008, we'd all go back together as the rebirth of Boyzone, and we kind of making an album, and we were all proper fired up. And then 2009, as we were getting into the whole gist of it and about to be back on top, let's call it. And then, we get the news. We get the news that I was Ronan Keating. He called me, and I was driving, I was drifting over in Ireland at the time in a competition. And it was like 11 o'clock at night, and my phone was ringing. I was in the bar. with most of the teammates and stuff. And my phone's ringing, and I see it was Ro, and Ro doesn't call you unless it's serious, or he usually calls me because, Shano, can you find me a car? I needed this and that and the other because I'm his car guy, you know. And I was like, geez, this is a funny one. And I actually ignored it first. I was like, I'll get to him because I was having a few points with the lads. And he kept ringing. So I answered the phone in the turmoil of the noise of the pub. And I could kind of hear him go, Shano, Steo's gone. I was like, what are you talking about? So as I left the room and the room silenced and the voice got louder on the phone and I could hear him saying, Steo's gone. I was like, who? And he goes, Steo's gone. And then we kind of got into it as, Steo died, he passed away. I was with one of my good pals now, Paul McCann, who's the boss of the team I was driving for, great friends now. And, he came over, he obviously seen the whatever facial expressions I had. He goes, everything all right? And I went, no, man. So we went upstairs to my room and I took a moment of, it's almost the ringing in the ears. Did I hear it right? Is this true? I'm thinking, all right, where do I go from here? What do you mean Steo's dead? So then my phone was pinging away. It was Keith, it was Mick, everything started going. And then I went into this not weird, but survival mode of, something just kicked in of not sadness. It kicked in with, I heard Ro's voice. I heard the torment, the torture. I heard Keith, the boys crying. And I was like, I need to be
strong for the team.
Yeah, weird. Like, it kind of didn't hit me till years later that Steo passed, I think, because I just went into this click. Right, bam, 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 where are you? Where's this? Where's that? Where's happening? And Keith was with another friend of mine who owned a cab firm, great friend of mine, Franco Murphy, grew up in school together, and he was driving Keith and his Mrs. Lisa and a couple of pals into town, and they were going out for the night out, and they spun around, came down to where I was, just outside Dublin, drifting, picked me up, picked Mikey up, and then we all went back to their house, then jumped on a plane, came over to the UK, met with Ro at my house, so we were all at my house, and then headed out to Spain within a couple of hours. And when we got there, it's still like super surreal. I think a lot of it I might have like blocked out with a lot of Boyzone as well. I blocked out, like,
self-preservation.
Yeah, I think there's a survival tactic within your own head that you kind of need as a system sometimes too, to forget about things because they're not fucking good for you. And when I was doing this documentary with the boys, they had to physically show me the clip or the newspaper or for me to even remember, I was stood next to Pavarotti, stood next to Joe Cocker, all these people. I don't have a mental picture of that. But to see it, I go, wow, that's amazing. But I don't have that. I can't find that in my mind to go, yeah, I remember that. So, and I think I went into that with Steo. I went into lots of, shit, I don't remember that. Because I know we all flew over, we all went to the apartment, we all went to the place, we all went to the things. And they showed me the clips of the moments of when we're over there, and I have no recollection of that. I'm completely shut that out, or whatever my system in my head did, until I see it, and then it's like, wow, that really happened.
What was the cause of death? Because there was loads of speculation at the time, and you know what people are like, they want the worst, don't they?
Yeah.
They feed off that nonsense.
They do, and we love a bad story, don't we? And I don't know whether, I don't say we get our kicks out of it, or maybe it makes us feel like better people if someone else is worse off. I don't know what that is. But Steo's cause of death was he had a heart issue to do with valves opening and closing, but which caused a lung problem. So he drowned in his own self. So
wow.
His sister has it, and I think the mother had it, but never diagnosed. Now they're all on medication. Now it's a little simple pill. And like, he should have never died, if you want to look at that. But he actually, his lungs filled up with fluid, and that was it. He couldn't breathe, and he actually drowned.
Rest in peace.
Amen, yeah.
And did you guys know of his sexual orientation before he come out of the closet?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was the disco dancing queen, our fella. You know what I mean? He was amazing. He was like, Steo was our Duracell bunny. And from the day that when we got into the band, he never hid it from us. He was always Steo, and going through that life of early Boyzone. I'm not sure, when did it come out? Maybe it was 99.
Because things were very different back then than they are now. People would hide it more, wouldn't they?
I think Louis wanted to hide that more than anything because Louis always put Stephen with certain girls in stories.
He didn't want to upset the female fans.
I think so, you know, and I think that goes back to as innocently as well because you're boy band members and you're meant to, you know, girls are meant to adore you and that's what sells records and that's what makes money. So in a business sense of things, he was always partnered with different girl band members just to hide the fact that he was always seeing fellas and he was gay. And when the story did come out, again, I know I'm reverting back to the documentary because it's quite poignant at the moment because there's a lot came out in that as such. And, you know, I think a lot of people looked at Louis Walsh like he sold the story, but 100% in my heart and hearts, he did not. He never put Theo in that position. He always tried to protect Stephen. 100%. He would not have thrown him under the bus like that. Somebody did in the camp. Somebody in the Boyzone camp definitely went ahead, sold the story, and that story was coming out regardless. They gave Theo the chance to out himself rather than writing the story. Say, look, we're gonna do this, but you want to do it yourself. And they kind of pushed him in, backed him into a corner, which is a super fucking horrible thing to do. But like every real stress moments in life that we go through, you do come out the other side for a rhyme and a reason of why you went through that. It's a difficulty and you managed that difficult state, which brought you to be able to cope for the next difficult thing coming. And Theo went through that and ping, he came out like a superstar.
Well, any of my friends that have come out of the closet, I mean, I've not got loads, but I've had a few friends that they're gay, they've fought it, they've hidden it, they've denied it, they've lied about it, and then their whole life they've battled it. Yeah. And then the second they come out the closet, they then can be themselves. And it's like, shit, you should have done that a decade ago.
If only, you know, the if buts, the maybes. Yeah, and for Theo, you know, he really came out and I mean, he got camper by the day. He was a free man. He really was.
He leant right into it.
He was like, right, lads, let's go. And, you know, he was an amazing character, Theo. He was such a beautiful soul and genuinely, he lived life in a dream world, definitely in a dream world, but he lived life as a superstar, as an encourager, as a friend, he was there for you as well. You know, he was one of those boys which you could pick up that for. I adored him. You know, me and Theo were very, very close. He was about to be, he was my best man, but he was about to be the godfather to my first child and all that, you know. And then he passed, and obviously, yeah, it was a big tragedy. And we all took it very differently. But for me, a couple of years later, I think then it sank in. Then I got sad about it. Then I got kind of depressed about it. Not depressed, but like, I'd like to believe we are all here on the planet for a particular time. There's never a good time for you to go. Not for yourself that has passed, but for those around you, because it doesn't matter how old your mom and dad are. You don't want them to go. It doesn't matter. You know, age is just a thing in people's lives. I think there's an acceptance that we have to come to that their timing really is their time. Of course we go, they were taken too young. Of course we feel that way because that's our own selves, emotions, missing somebody that we love. But for them, I think they're in the best place ever out of this fucking bullshit world that we're facing, you know. Often in time, you know, if you really want to think about it, they have no stress, they have no worry, they have no anything. Life is a beautiful thing, but they're free of a lot of shit that a lot of people are going through. And maybe they were about to go through some shit that nobody could handle. And
they never did in the
end.
And
they never did in the end. They got away with it. They got away with the suffering, you know?
Yeah, what a positive way of looking at it. Yeah, fair play. The documentary. I've watched it. I thought it was great. Very interesting. Louis Walsh.
Yeah.
Did he get backlash off the back of that documentary? Because I sort of thought they painted him in a bit of a Dr. Evil type character. What did you think of it?
You know, like...
And what is he really like? Yeah. What is Louis Walsh really like?
Like an interview like this, Liam, I've lived a life of if you speak it, you own it. If you act it, you are it. That's how I live my life. On telly and in kind of real life, I guess. And Louis, he spoke it. He's got to own it. So, yes, you can be painted into a particular picture. Like, did they do that? I think they put segments of him saying certain things in perhaps delicate moments that didn't favour his wording at the time. But truthfully, he's a great man. Louis Walsh is a great man, and I don't think he deserved the backlash. I think people they made their own minds up without really hearing what he's actually saying, without really hearing where in the sensitive point of this interview is. You know, and let's take the simple thing as Stephen dying, or Stephen coming out, he got the front page. The nonchalant kind of rolling off the tongue that it's all great. But Louis was that way anyway. He is, it's all great. He is a positive person. He is a nice guy. He made Boyzone what it is today. Without his behaviour and how he operates within the industry, we would have never got to where we were. So I've got to respect him. I've got to love him for it. And like, he put me in the papers, slagging me off and putting me down, you know, over the years and years and years. Nothing specific, but just over the years. But when you see the guy, all you can do is give him a hug, because he's a genuinely lovely man.
Is he a bit of a mercenary?
No, he's
a businessman.
He's a businessman. But without putting him into any particular category, I think he's spectrum-based, and there's a certain filter that he might not have that most people have. And he has something that's just, he's almost like a free guy. You won't think about, if I say that could do some damage there. He just says, he just goes. He goes. So he has a filter that's missing. Yeah. So it puts him in a particular category, but he's a gent.
And was you happy with the documentary on the whole?
Yeah.
Any parts that you thought?
You know what? Looking at the documentary now, as a selfish individual sitting down for the first time, watching the documentary and what's in front of me, it's like I looked at it as a music video, right? Picture this. You make a new record, new music video, you're sitting down for the first time, first edit. All you care about is how many times am I in it, and how good do I look in it, and what's my shots. You don't give a shit about anyone else. You're just looking at you, and then you go, I don't like that shot of me, I don't like this. And I kind of I watched the documentary for the first time that way, as a selfish individual going, how do I come out of this? And then I went, let me watch that again. And I watched it a few times, and I kept changing and I kept seeing and hearing new things. And I came out the other side with, wow, that's a fucking good documentary. And again, going back and hearing the other boys' stories, hearing what they went through, and not just waiting for me to come on camera to go, oh yeah, I like what I said there. Oh, I said much better shit than that. Why did they put that bit in? So to dissect all of it, could I have been better on there? Could I have said, or could they have used stuff to which I wished I had said on there? Yeah, there's loads of things in there that I didn't think particularly represented my character directly, but that's only from a selfish perspective. But actually, the documentary is incredible. They captured so much. They went down a road which I didn't think they were going to go down. And it's brilliant. Like the people who they got in there, and the old journalists and the underground car parks, and the way they did it was just like, it was real. It's believable. It's a true story. And it got people, or gave people an understanding that, maybe for the first time, that the industry is a lot darker than we think, going back to that, where do you sit with the whole thing? But as a piece of work, it's up for a load of awards right now. It was Sky's biggest thing since Sky began, and it's a massive success. Did we as Boyzone, because we talk about it now, of course, we're like, shit lads, I didn't think it was going to be that big. We knew it was going to be good because we have a good story, but we didn't think it was going to be that good and that big. And Curious, as the filmmakers, did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was really, really good, especially as being a Boyzone fan as well, a man of my age.
Which is hard to believe.
But I am, yeah. I love any kind of musical. I'm actually a big softie. Wizard of Oz, Grease. There's a picture up there of Grease. I am one big softie. But here's a question for you, because I've heard you use the phrase imposter syndrome in the past. So at the time when you was in the thick of it, you'd say you suffered with imposter syndrome, or you had a touch of it.
I still do. I still do in life.
Well, here's the question then. We can come back to that. When you watch that documentary back, did you watch it back and actually think to yourself, nah, I did belong there?
I definitely did belong there.
Did you still feel like the imposter though?
I feel like an imposter in life anyway, because life's been great to me. And I'm a healthy guy. I've had a lot of favour in life. I've got things put in front of me that perhaps I never, let's call it deserved, but I was placed in a position not for me. I was placed in a position for others. So what I mean by that is any of those supporters, fans of Boyzone, I was put there for them, not for myself. So I kind of see Boyzone music as, it's never ours. We don't own that music. We're 5 characters who stood on stage, who delivered emotions, memories, and a lot of amazing journeys and stories for the people. Weddings, funerals, first dances, whatever you want to call it, just life struggles, the music that takes you through periods of time when you're dark, and this comes from the people's mouths. We've had so many amazing stories of, you got me through my childhood, my school, my this, my that, that was their memories, and it's the people's memories. And I'm super happy that I've come to that position, because I don't stand on stage elated that I'm a boy band member. No, I stand on stage delivering you back your memories, or your new memories, or your moments in time. But the imposter syndrome side of things is, are there better singers out there? Are there better looking people? Are there better dancers? Of course. But I managed to get through this one, not for me, but I too truly believe for other people.
I tell you what, it's of no surprise to me that you and Paul Danan were good friends, because you both share that same real nice energy. And I hope people can feel the energy through the screen when they watch it, because it's very different when you're actually person to person. And yeah, you share that same energy that Paul Danan has. A real nice, like, I'm having a good time just listening to you speak, and the way you think and your perception on stuff. Very selfless man.
I think I'm glad it's took many years to get here, and I'm still not there. I'm on a great journey of, I think we all are. I think we're all on a great journey of, every day is a new day, of course, but it's an understanding of trying to change your mind in certain perspectives of, when you look at, I should have had, I should have got, I should have this, it will damage you, and it will continue to damage you. You have to change why you didn't get, how you didn't get it, and why you don't have it. And then maybe go and try and get it some other how. But I think with Paul Danan, you're right, he was, my friendship group, let's call it, are of similar nature, similar character, and I think we're for the people. I don't mean that in a weird way, but Paul Danan, when he walked into a room, had this energy for everybody else. Although deep down inside, that was one hurting guy. Mm-hmm. He was in trouble, inside, broken, in trouble, massive struggles in his life, but walked into that room and gave every last bit of him to everybody else in that room. That's a true gentleman, a true saint, if you want to put saints. And then he went home and went into his dark place and whatever that is, but he fought for everybody else. And, Paul always inspired me that way. And Ben inspires me that way. People, if you can get that from them, it's a lovely thing to be able to receive from them, if you can get it.
I wanted to mention Stephen and Paul during this interview so they can get the kudos they deserved, because we need to remember these people. If they touched us once upon a time, don't let them go when they're gone. Keep them there. Keep speaking about them.
I always celebrate as opposed to mourn. And, to look back on the great days, it doesn't matter whether there were dark times, you have to look back on the great days and just remember beautiful souls, beautiful people from all walks of life in our own family, and whoever who's gone before us or gone before their time as we see it. Always don't look back in kind of the loss of that person and the sadness in your heart. No, change it into joy, bring it into great times, great memories. And again, they're probably much better off in a place. It's only us that suffer. They're suffering no longer. It's just us. Change that narrative.
Yeah, grief is a very kind of selfish thing, isn't it? It's the first thing that hurts are your feelings.
Absolutely. And it's hard, of course. You've got to shed tears for them, but turn them into joy. If you have that gut-wrenching feeling, obviously it's hard to do that when things are fresh, fresh hurt. But, time is an amazing healer. I know that's a saying that goes around forever, but it is, as a person who was lost and loved, or loved and lost, time is an amazing healer.
Yeah, well, here's a big question. This will be the biggest question I ask you today.
Right.
You've lived a hell of a life. You've been through things that people can only dream of, ups, downs, fascinating, incredible. But out of all the things that you've done, seen and achieved, what's the one thing that gave you the most fulfillment?
It's not even like a hesitation that I'll have on this. It's more a breathtaking, because is true, and that is coming to Christ, and that is knowing Christ, my Lord, my God, Jesus Christ. And I came to a very dark path, but had everything. I had everything man can desire. Looking out from the outside, looking in, pop stars, Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, million-pound houses, you look out and go, wow, could you imagine being there? Could you imagine living that life? I stood there in that life, the most emptiest soul. Nothing could fulfill. Like, tangible stuff could not fulfill my emptiness. And my friend Ben Afedu, we were doing a music project early in kind of when Boyzone finished, so kind of 2000, 2001 into 2. Let's call it a love project. But what I was doing is I was surrounding myself with people who they had this thing, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what Ben had, but he had this thing, and I wanted it, and I had everything, but nothing at the same time. And he had this thing, and the more I kind of spent time with him, and the more I explained, I was going through dark times as well to do it. It goes back into visitation stuff and, demonic visitations and all sorts of stuff. It goes into like a paralytic state. It's quite biblical, actually. It talks about it in the Bible to do with a lot of the underworld and what it will do to you, or how they present themselves to you and stuff like that. But I would wake up in the middle of the night in a paralytic state. My eyes would open and I could see demonic things within the room and stuff like that. But I couldn't move. I couldn't move my mouth. I could mumble. And in my own words, I was trying to tell things to fuck off. Like, it was a scary time, but I couldn't announce anything. But my eyes were open. I couldn't move my eyes, but my peripheral vision could see lots of shit going on. And I started explaining this to Ben because I get funny around a full moon, and funny enough, today is a full moon today. I can get really sketchy around full moons. It goes two ways. I get moody, angry, and sometimes aggressive. Or I can get really recluse where I can't actually speak at times. Now, this is going back in the day. I'm well over that power now. But I explained to Ben, because we had a few gigs coming up. I was like, dude, it's like, that gig's on a full moon. I can't do that. He said, what do you mean? I was like, I've got to tell you these things. And I started telling him these things. And he went, do you know what, Shane? He says, can I ask you to try something? And I was like, yeah. He goes, the next time you have these paralytic moments and those demonic things, just say, in Jesus' name, be gone. I was like, okay. Not into God. Like, I'm anti-God at this point. Like, I'm deep into, like I said, witchcraft and spiritualism, and I have a broken tattooed crucifix over my heart, snapped like that, like anti-Bible, anti-God. And I was like, right, okay. Sure, and lo and behold, here it comes. And for the first time, my mouth could speak, my tongue could move. And I'm on years in this stuff, years being tortured, let's call it like this. And I said, in Jesus' name. And I was like, whoa, in myself, I was like, oh my God, I could move. And then blam, whatever I was going through was gone, immediately gone. And I was like, whoa, that's powerful. Like, that's some powerful stuff like that. And I'm anti-God. And I came in with the name of Jesus, and things happened. Because I think I had a belief in my friend and a question of, could this happen? And I took that leap of faith, let's say, to go, oh, I'm going to try that. And then as it came more and more, and as I said it, I promise you this, in the spiritual world, they hated it. They came in forces. They came longer. They came stronger. They came for me. And the more I got into Christ is the more, all of a sudden, my darkness started to lift. The voids I couldn't fill through stuff, tangible stuff, the hunger I had for the word, the hunger that Ben was feeding me, like, he was feeding me spiritual food. And I was taking it on board, and I was fighting these demons. I was fighting out of this troubled state. I was fighting out of this depression. I was fighting out of the horrible state I was in. But I started to get filled with joy, with happiness, with love, with, everything started to change. So my wife now, I had met her, and we were only short together in a period of time. And her dad was a bishop in the church in Lewisham. And he had just passed away, and her brother, we're similar age, Mike, Pastor Mike, he had just took over the church. And she was like, she'd born and raised Christian girl, and she was like, do you want to come to church and stuff? And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me a break here. But I knew that's what I needed. So I actually didn't go to that church initially. I went to another Catholic church because I was born and raised a Catholic. And I went in thinking I'd just sit in an empty vessel of a place. But no, it was full of families. And that's what got me, you know. I didn't listen to the priest. I just looked. I looked at the people, looked around
Communities.
me. Yeah, and I looked at what they were there. They came out to serve the Lord. And I was like, wow, there's got to be something in this for me. And eventually I ended up going to like when I say a Bible study or Bible class, it's basically the parables of the Bible. And you know, the thing about the Bible is it's a history book. It's not like a make-believe story book. This is history. And the way the preacher started to break down parables, I mean, it's like he was batting the shot straight to me. Everything was just like blah, 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 just hitting me like with encouragement, hitting me with belief, hitting me with, my gosh, how come every time I turn up here, it's like he's talking to me directly, you know? And I really got into it and it saved my life. And it took me to a place where I am now, of course, of just enlightenment, positivity. Don't get me wrong, I have my dark days, like we all have dark days, but I turn to the Lord because that's where I know where my comfort is. That's where I know my connection is. And not anymore on a Sunday, as in not only anymore on a Sunday. Any Sunday I can make, I'll go to church. But I fellowship with Ben, with people around me, with the God scenario because it's good for my mind. My head needs it. This is the difference. Like, if I take God out of my life, my head will go into darkness. Even to do with music. I do not listen to secular music. I don't listen to radio stations. I listen to two radio stations called Premier Christian Radio or Premier Gospel because that's what's right for me. That's what's right for my head.
You're careful and conscious of what you put in.
Absolutely. It's brain food and it's so important. If we're listening to trash, we're going to think trash. If we're listening to positivity, we're going to think positivity. And the Lord is that for me.
Well, what do you make of this then? So I'm atheist. As much as I'd love to believe, I don't and I can't. Certainly for now, I would love something to present itself because then it gives me something to, I don't know, cling on to for when I eventually leave planet Earth. But at the moment, I don't believe. But this is the question. What do you make of this? As soon as we turn the conversation towards God, you grew.
Right.
I see love in your eyes, your energy pumped out your chest, it filled the room. As an atheist, I want more of that. I want Christian values restored in the UK. Make that make sense. I don't believe, but I want everybody else to believe.
You're right.
Where am I at?
You're a pioneer in the game. You're a soldier that's coming for Christ and you don't even know it. So I think there's time is the most important thing. You've got Chronos and Kairos. Chronos is on earth and that's literally time. Kairos is spiritual world. And all of the soldiers, this is a time in need of, and it's beautiful to hear you talk like that because the way the world is going, we need soldiers and we need more of them. You're definitely one of them. You just don't know it yet. And I can tell by you in your own nature. And you've already made steps as a non-believer to try and believe. That's called faith. So you've taken your step of faith, but you're denying, I'm a non-believer, but you're actually going, hey, what about this? So you're actually searching, but you don't even realize you're searching. You're looking for a place to be and you're looking for the country to have the values of Christ-like values. Let's break it down to the 10 Commandments. That's in front of you. You know, this is the rules, this is the rules of do's. And if we do this, lads, life's going to be, a lot better if we don't do them. And the more you take that out of our schools, out of our houses, out of our systems, it has to be replaced with something. And it's getting replaced with all the nasty shit. So let's have the goodness. Don't take it out of that. But you've got an amazing, like having me on here is an obvious step for you in faith. Like I said, you don't even know it yet, but I know it. I know it. It might take you a while. Actually, I don't think it's going to take you that long. I think you're going to be much more a soldier, much quicker than you think. I have a lot of belief in you. I can see it in you because you have a certain power, you have a certain presence, and the world needs that. You have an amazing podcast. You have amazing guests on here. So you've gone through loads of people's journeys. You've asked a lot of questions to other people, and you've received certain people's yes, rights, wrongs and stuff. And this will be another one for you. I'm just another guest in your studio, but I think you're going to be empowered more than you ever believe. And it's coming for you. Christ is coming for you.
He's coming.
He's coming, mate.
How do we restore that back into the UK? How do we put a big injection of Christ back into Britain and make people think that, well, it's okay and it's a good thing? But how do we make Christianity trendy again?
Through yourself, through me.
So that's a lot of pressure to put on me, Shane.
No, it's not pressure. No, you're doing it anyway. Don't forget there's different people within Christ that you're going to be attracted to, like a boy band. Let's take the boy band scenario. You know, there's different people who are going to be into me because I look like I'm into hip hop and da-da-da-da. So there's certain Christians who will be attracted to certain Christians and certain people who will be... So the attraction is important. So you'll have your own kind of outside looking in going, oh, I never thought Liam would be able to, I never thought he'd be like that. And then that's the interest is like, wow, he can get there. Maybe I can. Rather than just looking at, he's a Christian, innit? Yeah, man, over there. Yeah. Well, how about Liam? But like Shane? And I think that's what I've always had in my life. Shane is like a Christian now because of all the stuff I was in. And, but it takes time. It takes, what does it take? Oh, it takes effort. And the effort is like, okay, the river doesn't know that you can't swim, right? If you jump in there and the river takes you, you didn't know you couldn't swim. But if you learn to swim, that river can be a place of, if it's a hot day, you can cool you down. You jump in, you have fun and you swim. But if you can't swim and you never took the time and effort to make that a place where you can swim and cool down, it will take your life. And I think if you were to drink from that river, if you didn't take the time to get the wood, to boil the water, to take the parasites out and drink it, you just went and drank it because you're thirsty. It might kill you. So there's lots of steps to take before you just jump in a river and go, this is what I'm doing. You got to do what you're doing, which I think is incredible. You take little snippets of moments to learn, what's that? I like that. I don't like that. What's he talking about there? Maybe I'll try that. So that's important rather than trying to kick the door down,
Should I tell you what I feel like I'm kind of morally obligated to do in current times, modern day Britain? I feel like I like encouraging people that aren't Christians to still believe in Christianity. You don't need to be a Christian to see the benefits of Christianity.
Yeah.
It can only be a net positive, surely.
Yeah.
No one's murdering or blowing themselves up in the name of Christ.
Yeah. Christians aren't out there taking people's lives if you don't believe in Christianity. We're there as encouragers. Like you see the street preacher, or the person on there on the mic, which a lot of people say, Bible bashers and denying them. The only reason they're doing that is because the passion inside them. And they're not doing it for their benefit. They're trying to, and if they can get 1, 2, 3 people to come to the Lord, they're doing their job for Christ, right? And some people are really annoyed by that. Some people super hate street preachers. Some people hate me talking on a podcast about God. I get all of that, but we're only there to try and help you. Let's say in the end of it all, and with those lights do shut down, and there is a God, I'm okay, meaning I've lived a life of certain morals. I've lived a life of certain engagement in trying to be better and better myself every day in the Word of God. If that shuts down and God isn't real, I have lost nothing. I've had a great life of transition and trying to better myself every day. Am I the best man I could ever be? No. I'm still on a journey and I'll be to the day I die. Have I gone from a really distraught state to where I am? Absolutely, yes. And when I get to the very end, if it's real, well, goddamn, I'm a lucky fella. And if it's not, I've had an amazing life trying.
And what would you say to any young men out there watching this that are struggling at the moment?
Be encouraged, within positivity. And I got to go back to brain food. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What's going through your mind all day, every day? And if that's something you have to change, well, find the change. Because you cannot, if you're just eating the same food, you want to go to the gym and be a bodybuilder and all you're doing is eating sweets, it's not going to help you out. You have to put the right fuel in your body to create the right shape that you're looking for. Your mind is the same. You've got to go and take the right brain food for you to be able to create, to be the man you want to be, the girl you want to be, the woman you want to be, whatever the case may be. And that's super important. And there's people out there who you can go and get that from, the likes of yourself. Great information, great podcasts, great understanding of life, and pulling out what you like about other people, their journeys, their stories, what brought them to the where they are today. And I think mostly on your podcast is people's journeys. That's why you're interviewing them, where they were, oh my God, to now, to what they're now, and their beliefs now, and moving forward now, and all sorts of stuff. It's out there. You definitely got to find it. You've got to do the work.
Before I ask you my final question for the day,
Yeah.
I'm going to share a little story with the audience, people that are watching and listening. So about 15 years ago, a friend I used to do business with, he owned a bar. My background, people watching and listening will know that my background is a security background. One of the legs of my business was to provide security personnel to pubs and clubs. And one night, Shane made a guest appearance at a venue near me, and I was asked, can you come in plain clothes and make sure that Shane is looked after for the entire night, be in the background, keep an eye on him, and if anybody makes a move or intercepts or takes liberties, can you deal with the problem covertly? No problem at all. I'd done that. I was there. Me and Shane spent the night together. Shane didn't even realise that we spent the night together. That's how covert I was. But we did have a picture taken together. Now, some people that come on the show, they apply to come on, and others I reach out to come on. And I reached out to Shane. And as I'm back and forth with Shane having a conversation, I said to him, I had your back one night many, many years ago, and you didn't even realise it. And we all know that people talk a lot of crap. So luckily, a photograph was taken of that evening of one of my security guys there, great guy, Simon Waterman, Shane, and then there's me, right over Shane's shoulder. And, I mean, I'm not religious, but thank God that we found that photograph yesterday, because I couldn't find it, and I scrolled my old business page, my old WhatsApp, you name it, I couldn't find it. And I said to my friend Simon that was in the picture, I said, please tell me you can find that picture of you, me, and Shane together when we was looking after him. An hour later, he sent me the picture and he said, that took me an hour to find. I said, thank God. I then sent it to Shane and said, I told you we'd met before.
Here we are.
And he's seen it and he's got it on his phone now. So the world works in mysterious ways. So I thought I would share that with people because it's, I like that story.
It's always nice to have connections, and especially in our back in the day times. And you know what? I guess this is probably like, maybe it makes sense to you. You were always there. Like that. I was in a club, it's in a thing, and if anything kicked off, blam, you were there. And I think that's the way I hold the Lord. I'm in this world, it's a mad world. My Lord is there. Everything kicks off, blam, he's got me back, you know. And that's kind of, to equate from our relationship to that relationship, I guess is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with it. Very, I mean, I've really, really enjoyed your company and energy today, and I'm really grateful that you come on, because I really wanted you to come on, because I think we need some masculine, muscular Christianity in the UK, far more than there is at the moment. And you just tick all the boxes of a great man that if it's good enough for you, it should be good enough for us all. So final question.
Yeah.
What's your passion, purpose and future?
Passion, motorsport. Purpose, I was going to say to make change, but hey, I've got a lot of changes in myself to do. But encouragement. I think to be an encourager is important in life. And future, I don't know. I'm just living day by day, man. Like day by day. I've got lots of plans, lots of businesses, lots that fall on their arse, lots that come up, lots that do well, lots that fail. You know, I'm always driving forward. I've come from a place of non-deserving TV show, Boyzone, one of the biggest bands in the world. There's got to be hope and journey and positivity and all of that. And, you know, I've got a family, wife and kids, and I'm just doing my best out there for people.
And just before we wrap it up, just promote whatever it is you're doing at the moment. If you want people to go to a separate website to find you, any concerts coming up, whatever it is you're doing, let people know.
Do you know what's interesting? And I have a brand which is called Amen. And, you know, it started off as a shoe company, and it's still out there. So handmade leather shoes, men's, women's, stuff like that. And the reason why it's called Amen is because I wanted people to walk in a blessing, and they never even knew it. So on their feet, they're walking in a blessing. And we've just come into perfumes now. So Amen fragrances. So they are all your high street, designer brands, but just in a different bottle. So, and I've worked hard on that. So I wanted people to walk and it spray themselves in a blessing. And that's why it's called without a going direct effect, but it's amenfragrances.com. And I think I'm trying to bring God into the world subtly, I'm not the guy who rams it down anyone's throat, but if I can do my businesses in Christ that way, that's kind of what I'm at. So it's going good.
Yeah, good man. Well, it was me that asked you the question.
Yeah.
I encouraged God out of you today.
Yes,
you didn't come here to preach, but I was curious, and I'm very glad that you you answered so honest and openly, and I got a lot out of today. I really did. And I wish you nothing but joy and happiness and health for you and your family. And brother,
amen.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Good health, brother.